For centuries, the papacy has been one of the world's most enduring institutions, steeped in tradition, power, and mystery. But the role of the Pope, and the customs surrounding it, hasn't stayed static. From leading armies into battle to wearing jewel-encrusted crowns, some practices once central to the Vicar of Christ have faded into history. In this video, we're counting down 10 fascinating things the Pope used to do but doesn't anymore. Whether it's a shift in fashion, a rethink of rituals, or a step back from worldly rule, these changes reveal how the papacy has evolved with the times. Now, let's take a look. Number 10. Wearing the falda and the mantum. The falda was a long, white skirt worn by popes under vestments, symbolizing purity, while the mantum was a red, ornate cope with a train, tied to martyrdom and authority. Both required attendants to manage their length and projected papal grandeur. They faded after the Second Vatican Council under Paul VI, who simplified liturgy and rejected regal trappings for a humbler image. Seen as impractical and outdated, they clashed with a modern pastoral papacy focused on accessibility over spectacle. Last used in the early to mid-20th century, they're now museum pieces, reflecting a shift from temporal power to spiritual leadership. Number 9. The appointment of lay cardinals. Popes once appointed lay cardinals, non-ordained men, often nobles or allies, to the College of Cardinals, especially in medieval and Renaissance times. Examples include Ferdinand I and Teodolfo Mertel, the last lay cardinal. They aided governance and diplomacy, but declined as the church clericalized. The 1917 canon law required cardinals to be priests, and the 1983 code mandated bishops. After losing the Papal States and with a focus on spiritual roles, the practice ended. Mertel's death in 1899 marked its close. All cardinals now are ordained. Number 8. Using the Noble and Palatine Guard. The Noble Guard, formed in 1801 by Pope Pius VII, was a volunteer heavy cavalry unit of Italian nobles, serving as the Pope's personal escort and palace guard. The Palatine Guard, established in 1850 by Pius IX, was an infantry unit of Roman volunteers, acting as an honor guard after 1870. Both performed ceremonial duties, with the Noble Guard using sabers and the Palatine Guard wearing 19th century uniforms. Pope Paul VI disbanded them in 1970, favoring simplicity and reducing militaristic pomp. Only the Swiss Guard remains. Number 7. The sedia gestatoria was a ceremonial throne, a cushioned chair on a platform, carried on the shoulders of 12 attendants to elevate the Pope above crowds during public events. Used since at least the 14th century, it symbolized papal authority and allowed visibility in places like St. Peter's Basilica. Pope John Paul I was the last to use it in 1978, reluctantly. John Paul II abandoned it, favoring humility and direct engagement over ostentation, aligning with a simpler ethos. The Pope Mobile replaced it for practical mobility and safety after his 1981 assassination attempt. It's now a historical artifact, reflecting a shift from monarchical to pastoral papacy. Number 6. The Quirinal Palace, built in 1583 in Rome, was a papal summer residence and administrative hub, favored for its hilltop breezes over the Vatican's swampy air. Popes like Gregory XIII and Clement VIII expanded it into a grand complex. It served as their primary residence from the 17th century until 1870, hosting conclaves and councils. After Italy unified and seized Rome in 1870, ending the Papal States, the Quirinal was confiscated and became the Italian royal residence, then the Presidential Palace in 1946. Popes retreated to Vatican City, formalized as sovereign in 1929 by the Lateran Treaty. Number 5. Popes led armies into battle primarily during the Middle Ages and Renaissance when they ruled the Papal States. Pope Leo IV defended Rome against Saracens, while Pope John X personally fought Muslim raiders. The peak came with Pope Julius II, the warrior pope who donned armor to lead campaigns like the 1511 siege of Mirandola to expand papal territory. This reflected their dual role as spiritual and temporal rulers. After the Reformation and into the 17th century, such direct involvement waned as warfare professionalized and papal power shifted. Number 4. The papal tiara was a tall, conical crown adorned with 3 tiers of gold bands, often encrusted with jewels, symbolizing the pope's authority over the church and, historically, temporal power. Originating as a single crowned hat in the 8th century, it evolved by the 14th century into the triple crown, representing the pope's roles as priest, pastor, and teacher. Worn during coronations, it was last used by Pope Paul VI in 1963, who later donated it to charity, signaling humility. Post-Vatican II, popes like John Paul II opted for simpler inaugurations, rejecting its regal connotations. Number 3. Crowning emperors and granting regal titles. This tradition began with Pope Leo III, crowning Charlemagne Holy Roman Emperor in the year 800, symbolizing the Church's power to legitimize kingship. Popes like Innocent III crowned emperors like Otto IV and influenced titles across Europe, often tying them to loyalty to Rome. This continued with the Holy Roman Empire until its end in 1806, with the last crowning by a pope being Charles V in 1530. As nation-states grew and papal temporal power waned after 1870, the practice stopped. Modern popes no longer crown rulers or grant titles, focusing instead on spiritual guidance, leaving such acts to history. Number 2. Summoning Crusades. Popes summoned crusades by issuing papal bulls, calling Christians to reclaim holy lands or defend the faith. Pope Urban II launched the First Crusade in 1095 at the Council of Clermont, promising salvation. Later, popes like Innocent III and Gregory IX used councils and letters to rally knights and kings, often against Muslims or heretics. Crusades peaked from the 11th to 13th centuries, driven by religious zeal and papal temporal power. They stopped as the papal states fell in 1870, secular states rose, and warfare modernized. Today, the Church doesn't call crusades and actively advocates against the death penalty in all cases. Number 1. Mass excommunications. Popes excommunicate far less than they once did. In the Middle Ages, popes like Gregory VII and Innocent III frequently excommunicated rulers, nobles, or entire regions to enforce church authority, settle disputes, or combat heresy. It was a powerful tool when the church held temporal sway. Between the years of 800 and 1500, hundreds faced this penalty yearly. Today, it's rare, maybe only a handful over the course of a decade, reserved for grave, public offenses like schism. Modern popes emphasize mercy and dialogue over punishment, reflecting a pastoral shift and the loss of secular power after 1870, reducing its political use.